Small towns. Big secrets. We follow the evidence, not the rumors. Crime Key Secrets. Find the key. Unlock the truth.
Help! Somebody help me! We're gonna die!
Beverly Hills, California, a place where silence is expensive. High walls, iron gates, secrets buried under manicured lawns. On the night of August 20th, 1989, at 722 North Elm Drive, that silence was shattered, not by a whisper, but by a war zone. At 11:47 p.m., the police dispatcher received a call. It is widely considered one of the most chilling performances or genuine breakdowns in criminal history. Listen
Beverly
closely.
Hills 911, what is your location?
They shot and killed my parents.
The human scream is a biological alarm. When we hear Lyle Menendez on that tape, our primitive brain reacts with sympathy. He is hyperventilating. He is sobbing. To the untrained ear, this is the sound of a boy who has just walked into a nightmare.
I finally see the truth.
But listen to the pauses. Listen to the moments between the screams. Is it grief? Or is it the adrenaline of someone who has just committed an act of extreme violence? The line between victim and perpetrator is often blurred by hysteria.
The line between victim and between perpetrator is often blurred by hysteria.
When the police arrived, the air inside the mansion was heavy, not just with humidity, but with the smell of blood and the metallic sting of cordite. Gunpowder smoke was still hanging in the den like a ghost.
Dispatch, we're holding the perimeter at the rear. Send forensics immediately.
The scene was horrific. Jose Menendez, a powerful Hollywood executive, and his wife, Kitty, were found on the sofa. They had been watching a James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. But the spy movie ended, and a horror movie began.
Dispatch, we have a possible 24 at the old TV repair shop. Requesting backup.
Details matter. On the table, bowls of vanilla ice cream and sliced berries were slowly melting. A mundane, domestic detail sitting next to absolute carnage.
This wasn't a robbery. Robbers want money. They don't shoot someone in the face at point-blank range. This was overkill. In psychology, overkill indicates intimacy. It indicates rage. Whoever held those shotguns didn't just want them dead. They wanted them erased.
This was overkill. To understand the blood, we must first look at the gold. The Menendez family was the poster child for the American dream. Jose Menendez, a Cuban immigrant who arrived in America with nothing and climbed the ruthless ladder of corporate America to become the CEO of live entertainment. He was powerful. He was demanding. He was a king in his own castle. And then there were the princes, Lyle and Erik. Handsome, athletic, Ivy League material. They wore Rolexes to tennis practice. They drove cars that cost more than most people's houses. To the outside world, they were the golden boys.
The corporation, as a theory, suggests that our modern world is increasingly defined by large, impersonal entities.
Narcissistic families often operate like a corporation. Image is the most valuable asset. The parents are the board of directors, and the children are the products. If the product is defective, the pressure to fix it or hide it can be catastrophic.
But that night, the police didn't see a corporation. They didn't see rage. They saw two grieving orphans crying on the lawn. In one of the biggest blunders in LAPD history, the detectives made a fatal assumption. They assumed the killers were the mob, a mafia hit. After all, Jose had enemies. Because of this assumption, they didn't test Lyle and Erik for gunshot residue GSR. They didn't separate the brothers for questioning. They didn't look at their hands that had just washed away the evidence of a double homicide. The police let them go. They let the monsters walk right out the front gate into the Beverly Hills night. Four days after the murders, the Menendez brothers staged their masterpiece, the funeral. They arrived in limousines, draped in Italian suits, looking every bit the shattered orphans. Lyle leaned heavily on relatives, playing the role of the protective older brother. Erik looked frail, barely able to stand. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. But grief usually has a shelf life. For the Menendez brothers, it lasted exactly until the insurance check cleared. Within weeks, the tears dried up, and the wallet opened. They didn't just spend money, they hemorrhaged it. Lyle went on a rampage. He bought a Porsche Carrera, not a used one. Brand new. He bought a Rolex for himself, and matching Rolexes for his friends and tennis coach. He bought a restaurant in Princeton called Chuck's Spring Street Cafe for $550. In a career. Why? Because he liked their spicy chicken wings. Erik, the sensitive one, wasn't far behind. He hired a full-time tennis coach for $60,000 a year. He bought a Jeep Wrangler. He invested in a rock concert that never happened. In just 6 months, the grieving orphans burned through nearly $700,000. That is approximately $1.7 million in today's money.
Intercourse, internal void, and what we call the Manic Defense.
Psychologically, this behavior is what we call a manic defense. When a person feels an overwhelming internal void or guilt, they try to fill it with external objects, speed, luxury, status. It is a desperate attempt to outrun the silence. However, there is another explanation: sociopathy. A sociopath doesn't feel the loss of a parent. They feel the gain of an inheritance. For them, the parents were just obstacles standing between them and the Porsche. The spending wasn't coping. It was celebrating.
Back at the Beverly Hills Police Department,
We need that warrant
the
now.
mafia hit
Check the
theory
fires
was
on
falling
Johnson. Get me the
apart.
captain on line 3.
Mobsters don't kill parents and leave the kids alive
Where
to
is he
buy
then?
chicken wing restaurants. Detectives started looking at the receipts. Grief looks like silence. Grief looks like withdrawal. Grief does not look like a brand new ROLEX. The police realized they had made a mistake.
We just need to connect these
The
deposits.
danger wasn't coming from the outside. The monsters were already inside the house, wearing expensive watches and waiting for the next check to clear. While the police were chasing mafia ghosts, the truth was sitting on a leather couch in Beverly Hills. Enter Dr. Jerome Oziel, a psychologist. But this was no ordinary healer. He was manipulative, eccentric, and arguably unethical. He wasn't just treating patients. He was collecting their secrets like trophies. On October 31st, Halloween, Erik Menendez the younger, more fragile brother, couldn't hold the acid inside anymore. He called Dr. Oziel. He needed to talk. They met in the office. Erik was shaking. And then he said the words that would end their lives. We did it.
I did it.
Lyle arrived shortly after. He was furious that Erik had broken their pact of silence. But Dr. Oziel didn't call the police. Instead, he pressed record.
We had to ask ourselves, what were Oziel's real motives?
Why did he record them? Was it for clinical notes? Or was it insurance? Dr. Oziel knew he was sitting in a room with two boys who had just executed their parents. He was terrified, but he was also opportunistic. He now held the most valuable secret in Hollywood.
On those tapes, the boys confessed to everything. The shotguns, the reload, The coup de grace shots to their mother's face to make sure she didn't suffer. It was cold, it was graphic, and it was all on magnetic tape.
The tape doesn't lie. We heard everything.
But secrets have a way of leaking, especially when you have a mistress waiting in the waiting room. Judalyn Smith.
No.
Dr. Oziel's mistress and patient. She was living in his house, entangled in a toxic, bizarre relationship. On the day of the confession, she was there. She was listening. Months later, Dr. Oziel made a fatal mistake.
Get out!
He broke up with Judalyn.
Get out of my house!
He kicked her out. They say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Judalyn didn't go to the police to serve justice. She went to the police for revenge. She told them everything. The boys did it. And the doctor has the tapes.
We both know exactly what happened here. He deserves everything he has coming to him.
Move in, move in.
March 8th, 1990.
Clear the hallway.
The masquerade was over. Police arrested Lyle Menendez outside the family mansion. Erik was arrested days later, returning from a tennis tournament in Israel. The Golden Boys were now inmate numbers.
What this key unlocks and what these tapes reveal will change everything.
The breaking of doctor-patient privilege is extremely rare. It only happens if there is an imminent threat of violence. Judalyn Smith provided the key. Without the mistress, without the tapes, the Menendez brothers might still be eating chicken wings in Princeton today.
Sometimes the most dangerous criminals are those we least suspect.
But the arrest was just the beginning. The world thought they knew the story. Two greedy kids killed for money. But behind the closed doors of the courtroom, a darker, uglier truth was about to vomit out.
Get back.
The monster you created! The monster you created!
July 1993, the trial began. It wasn't just a legal proceeding, it was the birth of reality TV. Cameras were everywhere. The nation was ready to watch two greedy rich kids get fried. But they didn't account for one variable. Leslie Abramson.
You stand there on your ivory tower.
Standing under 5 feet tall, with a mane of wild blonde hair, Leslie was a force of nature. She didn't try to prove Lyle and Erik were innocent. She admitted they killed their parents. Her argument was simple, yet revolutionary. They didn't kill for money. They killed out of fear. They killed to stop the monster before he killed them.
This man is a monster!
When the brothers took the stand, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. For days, they recounted a childhood that sounded like a horror movie directed by their father. Jose Menendez wasn't just a strict CEO. Behind closed doors, he was a predator. They spoke of physical beatings, of being controlled down to what they ate and whom they spoke to. But the darkest secret was sexual. Erik testified that his father had been abusing him since he was 6 years old. Massages that turned into molestations, toothbrush inspections that were violations.
Society didn't want to believe.
In the 90s, the idea that a father, could sexually abuse his own sons was almost taboo. Society didn't want to believe it. It shattered the image of the patriarchal protector. But the details Erik provided, the shame, the dissociation, those are not things you can easily script.
We are in this
That
together.
is the texture of trauma.
And where was Kitty? Where was the mother? According to the testimony, Kitty Menendez knew. She knew everything, but she didn't protect her cubs. She protected her lifestyle. She was described as an alcoholic, depressed, and deeply unstable woman who once told her sons, "I love my husband more than I love you." She was not a victim in the boys' eyes. She was an accomplice by silence.
We cannot agree.
The courtroom was divided.
Let's calm down.
The nation was divided.
Nowhere.
Was this the abuse excuse a clever lie cooked up by a brilliant lawyer to save two spoiled brats? Or was it the ugly truth of the American dream?
It's the inability to believe two contradictory
This is called
truths.
cognitive dissonance. People looked at the Menendez mansion and saw wealth. They couldn't reconcile that rich could also mean torture. It was easier to call them monsters than to admit that monsters can wear Armani suits.
It doesn't absolve him of the crime. Order! I will have order in this court!
He is clearly guilty. I don't care what you say.
You can't prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
We are never going to.
January 1994. The result? A hung jury, deadlock. Neither brother was convicted. It seemed like a victory for the defense. But the system doesn't like to lose, and the prosecution was about to rewrite the rules. The cameras were turned off. The sympathy was turned off, and the silence was about to return. $1995. The second trial began, but something was different. The lights were off. Judge Stanley Weisberg, embarrassed by the media circus of the first trial, banned all TV cameras. The nation that had obsessively watched the Menendez soap opera was suddenly cut off. The brothers were no longer TV stars. They were just defendants in a quiet, sterile room. The biggest change wasn't the cameras, it was the rules. This time, the prosecution wasn't looking for justice, they were looking for a conviction.
You thought you could get away with it, didn't you? But the evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are the ones responsible.
The judge made a decision that sealed their fate before the first witness was even called. He blocked almost all evidence of sexual abuse. The gruesome details of the toothbrushes, the massages, the terror, it was all ruled irrelevant. The jury wasn't allowed to hear why they did it, only how they did it.
This is what we call a contextual lobotomy. By removing the history of abuse, the court surgically removed the brothers' humanity. Without the abuse context, Lyle and Erik were just two rich kids who wanted a Porsche. The narrative was stripped of its soul.
March 1996. The verdict came down like a guillotine. Guilty. First-degree murder. When the sentence was read, there were no tears this time. Just shock. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. They would die in a cage. The American dream was officially dead. But the system had one final punishment left. A cruelty designed specifically for them. For their entire lives, Lyle and Erik had only one person they could trust. Each other. They survived the abuse together. They committed the crime together. They faced the world together. The Department of Corrections decided to separate them. Lyle was sent to Mule Creek State Prison. Erik was sent to Pleasant Valley, hundreds of miles apart. When they said goodbye, they didn't know it would be for 20 years.
Isolation is the ultimate weapon against trauma survivors. By separating them, the system didn't just imprison their bodies. It broke their bond. It was the final victory of Jose Menendez.
They deserve justice. Lyle and Erik deserve justice. How can you ignore the evidence?
This is
For 20
absolutely
years,
heartbreaking. We have to share
the
this.
Menendez brothers sat in their cells, gathering dust like forgotten relics of the 90s. To the world, they were monsters. Case closed. But then, something unexpected happened. A new jury entered the courtroom. A jury that wasn't born when the murders happened. Enter TikTok. Enter Gen Z. In 2020, viral videos dissecting the abuse testimony began to flood the internet. Millions of views. Hashtags like Free Menendez started trending. Why? Because this generation speaks a language the 90s didn't understand. The language of trauma and mental health.
We won't stop until justice is served for the Menendez brothers.
In 1993, crying on the stand was seen as acting. In 2024, it is seen as a symptom of PTSD. The evidence hasn't changed. The brothers haven't changed. We have changed. The lens through which we view male victims has finally focused.
The pressure worked. In 2018, the system finally blinked. Lyle Menendez was transferred to the same prison as Erik. The moment they saw each other across the prison yard, they didn't speak.
You came back.
They just hugged. They cried. For the first time in 22 years, the brothers were back in the same house. But this time, there were no shotguns, only forgiveness. But the story doesn't end with a hug. In 2023, a bombshell dropped. 2 pieces of new evidence that could unlock their cage. First, a letter written by Erik to his cousin months before the murders, explicitly detailing the abuse by his father. It proves the defense wasn't a lie cooked up by a lawyer. It was happening in real time.
Every time I close my eyes, I'm right back there. But I have to tell this story for the others who can't.
Second, a voice from the past. Roy Rossello, a former member of the boy band Menudo, came forward. He accused Jose Menendez, the music executive, of sexually assaulting him in the 80s. Suddenly, the monster wasn't Lyle or Erik. It was the man they killed.
In a world hidden from view, the real monsters wear suits. This is the story of how they nearly took it all.
The audio features a documentary-style narration.
In 2024, Netflix released Monsters. The world watched again. Some saw cold-blooded killers. Others saw tragic victims who have served 35 years for a crime of survival.
Set in 1993 really captures the tension. You can just walk away from this deal, Jimmy. You owe us. The game changed, Michael. I don't owe you anything but a history.
The Los Angeles District Attorney is currently reviewing the case for resentencing. Freedom is no longer a fantasy. It is a possibility.
Justice is not static. It evolves. 30 years ago, we locked them away and threw away the key because we were afraid of the darkness in that mansion. Today, we realize the darkness wasn't the boys. It was the silence that surrounded them.
Lyle and Erik Menendez, 2 brothers, 2 killers, 2 survivors. They have paid for their crime with their entire adult lives. The question is no longer did they do it? The question is, have they suffered enough